This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, so we're here at the annual, yearly Tu B'Shvat, Tish, I don't know what you want to call it, gathering. So it's interesting, what are you supposed to do on Tu B'Shvat? So the Magen Avraham brings down the Ashkenazim are marbe b'Peiros. That's the irony of life. You know, the Magen Avraham says the Ashkenazim are marbe b'Peiros. Meanwhile, the Sfardim have taken over Tu B'Shvat. Ashkenazim, we're trying to catch up. Thanks to Gourmet Glad, we're covering ground rather quickly. So somebody sent me tonight. First of all, you should know that the Kaf HaChaim brings down from the Rizal. The Rizal writes that a lot of his madregos he was achieved through Birchas Hanehanin, by being zahir and making brachas properly. So let's start like this. We know there's Shivas Haminim. It says Eretz, Chita, wheat, Sa'ira, barley. So those are not fruits. So they're not Nageya. Gefen is grape, Te'ena, fig, Rimain, pomegranate, Eretz, Zayis, olive, Udvash, and dates. So the question is, if you have there are only 5 fruits which are Shivas Haminim, which one do you make a bracha on? Which of the 5? So the Gemara says, Kol HaKodim La'eretz goes first. The one earlier in the pasuk goes first. So you would think it would be Gefen, Te'ena, Rimain, Zayis, and Tamar. No, because it says Eretz 2 times. It says Eretz, Chita Usa'ira, Gefen, Te'ena, Rimain. So Gefen is 3 after the first Eretz. Te'ena is 4 after the first Eretz. Rimain is 5 after the first Eretz. And Zayis is number 1 after the second Eretz. And Tamar is number 2 after the second Eretz. So basically, the way you do it is, number 1 is Zayis. So if you have 5 fruits, the one you make the Haitz on is the Zayis, because Zayis is Eretz, Zeis, Shemen, Udvash. Dvash is Dvash Tamarim. So it's the Zayis, which is really listed 6, and Tamar, which is 7, and then it's Gefen, which is 3, Te'ena, which is 4, and Rimain, which is 5. So let's see, we don't have any olives, right? Most of the time, I don't know why, but Tu B'Shvat Tishin usually don't have olives. Whatever. Next year. Do we have to leave room for improvement? Right? I think we should, in the new building, we'll be makbet to have olives. Right? It's not right here, I just want to move olives. You can move the olives, there you go. So olives we don't have. Dates, by the way, dates you can't eat unless you check them. So dates are out. So then what's next? Grapes. Now here's the problem with the grape. If I eat this grape now, it's not a kazayas. They say I don't have to make a bracha achroina, but it's a beria. Whenever you eat a beria less than a kazayas, it now becomes a suffix whether you have to make a bracha achroina. So you're not really supposed to eat a beria. So basically what you do is, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri ha'etz. And then you're good, because you didn't eat a beria. So right now I don't have to make a bracha achroina yet. So if we wouldn't have grapes, Te'ena, figs also have a problem with bugs. And Rimain, we already made ha'etz, we'll eat a Rimain. Okay. So I'll tell you one thing, and then I'll tell you interesting minhag. Someone sent me an email tonight from the Sefer Moed L'chol Chai. Moed L'chol Chai is Reb Chaim Falaji, one of the great Sephardic Goinim. He says, No'agu b'roiv tfutzos Yisroel l'sader b'shulchan mikol Peiros. The minhag is to, in most Jewish communities, to be mesader all kinds of fruits, as much as you're able to afford. Everyone in the family eats a different fruit. So whatever role you are, so the man is supposed to eat mezainas, chita. Any wheat over here? No wheat, right? Not yet. Next year. So make a list of what we need for the new building. By the way, we're building a new building, so anybody out there wants to help sponsor, you could let us know. The line is rather long, but we could try to find a place for you. So it says the man is mavarech on the chita. Why? Because the man's the one who makes the parnasa. Parnasa is called chelev chita miasbiech, we say in davening. So the man eats the wheat. The woman, we give the woman the grapes. Why? Because it says the children in Tehillim are eshtecha kegefen paria. The wife is like a fruitful grape. The son eats an olive, because it says in Tehillim, the boy is sitting around the table, banecha kirsile zesim. Then, the daughters get the rimainim and the nuts. Why? Because they're both like covered in a shell to show tznius, kol kvuda bas melech panima. And you give honey and apples to the kids because they're very sweet. Or at least when they're about to go to sleep. Or when they're sleeping, they're even sweeter, especially right now, they're very sweet. Even if they're up, but what you don't know doesn't hurt. Anyway, so here's a very interesting thing. How in the world are you going to remember the order of the Shivas Haminim in terms of Kedima B'Brachos? Again, the order is, get the order, right? It's, what goes first? Zayis, Tamar, Gefen, Te'ena, and Rimoin. How are you going to remember that? So the Stipler gave a mnemonic. So let's start with the Zayis. How many pits does the Zayis have? One pit, okay? And then you go to the Tamar. Tamar, it depends. From Gourmet Glat, there are no pits. It's ready to taken out. But in the wild, it's one pit, but it's of two parts. You saw this? No? It's one part, it's fused together of two parts. A Tamar has two parts. Then goes what? Gefen. A grape has a couple of seeds. Then goes Te'ena. Te'ena has a lot of seeds. And Riman has even more seeds. So it goes up. The order to remember, Kedima Brachas is in the order of the number of seeds. Okay, let's tell you a very interesting thing. I saw quoted from two Sfarim. Basically, the names of them are Minhage Varmaiza, the Minhagim of Worms. Worms was a region in Germany. Actually, about the year 1100, it was called Garmaiza. And the name of the region was changed to Varmaiza. I say this every year on Tisha B'Av. You'll remember, every year I say this on Tisha B'Av, that the Chida writes in the Magal Toiv that the name of the region was Garmaiza, like the Rekeach is called Rav Lezer mi Garmaiza. But the problem was that there was a dragon, a real dragon in the region, and what the dragon ate was, every day he ate a yid. That was his dinner. And he was not satisfied until he ate a yid. Till one time, they fed him a yid, he went inside the dragon with a sword, and he vanquished the dragon, and henceforth the name of the region became known as Varmaiza, a worm, after this dragon. And I'm telling you that, this is what the Chida writes. The entire region was changed because of that. Anyway, the minhag in Varmaiza was like this. The minhag was that Tu B'Shvat was what the Gemara refers to as Yoima de Pagri. It was a day off. Nobody went to yeshiva. No, they didn't go to yeshiva on Tu B'Shvat. You'd stay home, no learning. He even brings down, they would send the kids fruit and alcohol. So the question is, what in the world is the meaning of this ancient custom of Mamish Bittul Torah Shein Kamoyu? What's the inyan of not going to learn on Tu B'Shvat? What other day is there? Is Yom de Pagri. The Yom de Pagri is the term that they were atzlonim from going to yeshiva. What's the pshat?
Before they had Lag B'Omer.
Yeah, I think they also say this about Lag B'Omer, but now we're talking about Tu B'Shvat. So I saw Rav Asher Weiss in his Sichais, in his Shmuzin, he's bothered by this question. What's pshat that they didn't go to learn on Tu B'Shvat? So if you look in the Sefer Eretz Tzvi, Eretz Tzvi was in Rav Tzvi Frumer. Rav Tzvi Frumer was the Rosh Shiva of Yeshiva Chachma Lublin after Meir Shapiro. He was a Mamal Makam of Meir Shapiro. So in Chelek Beis of his Chuvas, he has drashos. The first drasha is a drasha for Tu B'Shvat. And in his drasha for Tu B'Shvat, he says that he heard from his Rebbe, the Eglei Tal is the Sachachavar, that the Sachachavar said that starting Tu B'Shvat, he felt a tremendous mesikus and chidushei Torah. Like that's the day that he started to feel like a certain geschmack in saying chidushei Torah. Right? It's really, I know most big tzaddikim, they could also be made about themselves that starting Tu B'Shvat, they feel like a regeneration, they feel like a hischadshus, that they're able to say very, very sweet chidushim. What's pshat? Why would that be? Why would a person be able to say sweeter chidushim on Tu B'Shvat than any other day? Right, Rafi? Here I'm waiting weeks and weeks, and all of a sudden Tu B'Shvat, I hear beautiful, sweet chidushim. What's the pshat? So, somehow, it says in Devarim that when you go to conquer a city, don't chop down the fruit trees. What do you want from the poor fruit tree? Is the fruit tree a man that you need to chop him down? The lashon of the pasuk is V'chi adam eitz hasada, right? Ki adam eitz hasada. It's like rhetorical. Ki adam eitz hasada, but the Gemara takes it literally. No, ki ha'adam eitz hasada. Man is a tree. Even though that's not what the pasuk says. The pasuk says, why would you chop down the tree? He's not an attacking soldier. But the fact that the Torah writes it, that means it's true, even though it means it as a question mark. But if it's in the Torah, it's a statement of fact. A man is a tree. And therefore, the same way a tree has fruits, man has fruits. What are the fruits of man? His new ideas, his thoughts, his mitzvahs, his masim tovim, are his Peiros. So the Gedal Yishar says an idea that this world is a reflection of the higher worlds. If you see a hashpa of Gashmias downstairs, then there's a hashpa of Ruchnias upstairs. If you see luscious fruits and colorful fruits and hashpa of Gashmias, that means upstairs there's a hashpa of Ruchnias. So on Tu B'Shvat, which we know what happens on Tu B'Shvat, it's a completely technical day. It's the day that marks the beginning of the year for Hilchos Meiser, meaning whatever was chanat, whatever blossomed before Tu B'Shvat is last year's produce, and you take Meiser of it from last year. Whatever is chanat after Tu B'Shvat is this year's produce, you take Meiser of it this year. Why Tu B'Shvat? Rashi says the majority of the rain of the season has fallen by the time Tu B'Shvat comes, and the sap rises in the tree comes Tu B'Shvat. Meaning, we look at a tree Tu B'Shvat, and you're going to show me some picture of a tree covered in snow, but on the inside of the tree, the juices of the tree begin to rise. That juice is ultimately what's going to vitalize and go into the fruits. So the beginning processes of the fruit's vitality begins on Tu B'Shvat when the juice starts to go climb up the tree. That's what happens on Tu B'Shvat. Mamela, if we are like a tree, then the ideas and the chidushim that start germinating somewhere deep in the recesses of the heart, that's when they start you ever hear sometimes somebody says something, you say, I was sort of thinking that, but I feel like sometimes I wasn't even thinking it. It was so deep down, it was all the way deep down. I never formalized it even as a thought, but it was even before a thought. It was still bubbling on the inside. Tu B'Shvat is when, the juices of Chidushay Torah start to get going. Mamela, says Rav Asher Weiss, the reason why the Talmidim didn't go to yeshiva on Tu B'Shvat is like this. What do you need to go to yeshiva for? Because you need to learn. Who are you learning from? You're learning from a Rabbi. You don't need a Rabbi on Tu B'Shvat. Tu B'Shvat, you say your own Chidushim. Tu B'Shvat is the day that, your own lave is started, the juices of your own mind are starting to get going, the thoughts are starting to germinate. It's a day to focus on your own chelak and Torah, to develop your own ideas, your own chidushim, your own thoughts, your own Torah novella. That's the inyan of not going to yeshiva on Tu B'Shvat. So Baruch Hashem, here in our show, we're on such a high madrega that we could come to share and we could say our own chidushim later. It's not a stira, right? So that's the inyan of, says Rav Asher Weiss, of the minhag of not going to yeshiva on Tu B'Shvat. So I'll tell you one chiddush, and then we'll daven Marav. That is, so it comes out then that what day of the year is most opportune to start bringing out new chidushim? It's machlekes. Beis Hillel would say Tu B'Shvat, and what would Beis Shammai say? Right, Beis Shammai says Rosh Chodesh Shvat. The Mishnah Rosh Hashanah says Be'echad B'Shvat Rosh Hashanah Le'ilan K'divrei Beis Shammai Beis Hillel Oimrim B'Tesvav Bay. So Beis Shammai says Be'echad B'Shvat. That means, when should you start learning and teaching Torah Sheba'al Peh? So Loit Beis Hillel Tu B'Shvat, Loit Beis Shammai Rosh Chodesh Shvat. Amazing. What's the first Torah Sheba'al Peh that was ever taught? When Moshe Rabbeinu starts to teach Klal Yisroel Sefer Devarim. Because the Gemara says the difference between the first four books is Moshe saying over the words of Hashem, and Devarim is, even though it's Torah Shebechsav, but it's Moshe's take on it. It's Moshe mipi atzmai amran. The Gemara says. Look in the beginning of Sefer Devarim. You ready for this? When did Moshe start teaching Sefer Devarim, which is Torah Sheba'al Peh? The beginning, the third pasuk in Devarim. Vayihi be'ashtei asar chodesh. It was the 11th month. Be'echad b'chodesh. Right? It says Vayihi b'arba'am shana. Be'ashtei asar chodesh. Be'echad b'chodesh. When does Moshe Rabbeinu start to teach the Torah Sheba'al Peh? The most opportune time of the year. When? Rosh Chodesh Shvat. So you say, but it's close. It's pretty good. But he should have done it on Tu B'Shvat. What's he doing on Rosh Chodesh? Why is Moshe Rabbeinu going like Beis Shammai?
Beis Hillel down here, but it's Beis Shammai above.
So it's like this. that the Chidush Harim says, no, but it's pretty good. It's pretty close. Like Moshe Rabbeinu must have selected that date for a reason, right? That's when he starts to teach Torah about Peiros, Chodesh Shvat. The Chidush Harim says that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was offered the job to be the leader of Klal Yisrael, he says the words to Hashem, I can't do it. You know why? Loi ish devarim anoichi. I'm not a man of words. Says the Chidush Harim, the Soifei Tevais, Loi ends with an Aleph, Ish ends with a Shin, Devarim ends with a Mem, Anoichi ends with a Yud, Shammai. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, my neshama is the neshama of Shammai. I can't be the leader of Klal Yisrael. I'm too strict. I'm a Gvura. I'm Midas Hadin. I'm Shammai. I'm Midas Shammai. Hashem said, I know. Hu yia lecha lepeh. Aaron will be your mouth. Rashi Tevais, Hillel. Aaron is Hillel. Moshe was Shammai. Moshe Shammai, of course he's going to start to teach the Torah on Rosh Chodesh Shvat. Moshe is going, l'shitase de Shammai. And Moshe Rabbeinu never took us into Eretz Yisrael. He's waiting for the Gula Achroina, meaning the Darga of Moshe Rabbeinu is the Tikkun Achroin. And we know, La'asad Lavai, the halacha is going to be like Shammai. So Moshe Rabbeinu is always begeder, La'asad Lavai. So he teaches Torah, Be'echad B'Shvat, Rosh Hashanah Le'ilan. His Chidush on Rosh Chodesh Shvat. But right now, us in the 5 towns, we're still in this world. We're still in the Madriga of Hillel, and our Chidushei Torah they begin to flow on Tu B'Shvat. So we hope and we're mispalel the same way we have such beautiful Peiros. And I'll tell you one. We'll end off one Chasidish Shemaisa. The story goes like this: somebody once came to the Rebbe. You want to know who exactly? I'm going to tell you exactly who. The Tzaddik Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Mizidachav. Not to be confused with the Tzvi Hersh Mizidachav. And so the Aniyim were sitting around the table, and he's giving out the Peiros, and there wasn't enough. So he says, "Oh, these Peiros. You want Peiros? Elu dvarim she'adam oichel Peiroseim ba'olam hazeh Talmud Torah k'nei kulam. If you want Peiros, go learn something." What was he saying? He was just throwing them away. He was just like, coming up with an excuse. No, that's the whole purpose of Tu B'Shvat. The whole purpose of Tu B'Shvat is Vayhi ba'ashtei asar chodesh be'echad lachodesh. If there's a hashpah of Peiros, then there's a hashpah of Ruchnias. So Hashem should be mashpia on all of us. Peiros, we should have nachas from our kinderlach. We should have nachas from our families. We should have hatzlacha and parnasa and gezint. And v'malei Hashem kol mishal l'toiva. And we should all be zoicha to banim v'nei banim oiskim atar mitzvos, and enjoy the rest of the fruits.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.